Welcome to another episode of Sports Vibe. It's been a while since I've had a guest on, but I believe this is episode 69. So this, podcast has been going on for quite a while now. I'm definitely a fan of the new format I installed, but as always, bringing us the best of college football, the NFL, and the MLB as we start to wind down. But a busy week in college football. I'm happy to have on my sports editor from Sports Radio America. Once again, you might know him from some of the other videos or some of the articles I've written. But yeah, happy to have Rupayan back on the show. So I guess before we get started, how are you feeling with everything, and how's life going?
Yeah, I mean, just been busy, lots of stuff going on, lots of editing, lots of writing. Now I'm trying to get back into writing more. Uh, yeah, I mean, just in general things are good. My teams are doing well, so I'm not like sad.
Yeah, you're lucky, but we'll get onto that one. The Giants and Eagles just played, so I figured it would be nice to have an Eagles fan on to discuss that game, and so many of the other games that happen around college football and the NFL. But yeah, we'll touch on Giants Eagles later on in this clip. But first of all, college football, as always, so week 7 or week 8 is actually in the books now. So we're about halfway done with the regular season, even more I would say. But we have an expanded playoff. But first of all, the game I wanted to touch on to start things off here, Alabama versus Tennessee. Just another game here for Alabama where they lose. It feels like they started on a really they won a few games to start the season in a row. They beat Georgia and they were looking really good. They were the number one team after that, and then since then they lost to Vanderbilt. They barely beat South Carolina, and they struggled here today or well, last Saturday against Tennessee, their second straight loss in the state of Tennessee, and also their second straight loss to Tennessee after losing 2 years ago. This one, it just feels like the spark is gone from Alabama that they had to start the season. And Jalen Milroe threw two interceptions. I mean, on offense they've cooled down. On defense, against Vanderbilt they were a mess. Vanderbilt's kind of doing whatever they wanted, and Ryan Williams, as everyone knows, he's only 17, but he's been exceptional. But
Yeah.
other than that, I mean, Tennessee's also kind of was struggling a little bit. They lost to Arkansas. They lost to Florida in overtime. So, or they beat Florida, but they lost to Arkansas. So they were kind of looking for a little bit of a bounce
Yeah.
back, but a huge win against Alabama. Nico, I can't even say his last name. Leva, he had a big performance.
Yeah.
And then Dylan Sampson on the ground, 139 for two touchdowns. So Tennessee, it was an exciting game, kind of came towards the end that Tennessee took the lead and held on for the win. But Alabama's reeling, Tennessee kind of on the right track again. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my takeaways from the game. But what do you think? What do you think Alabama needs to do to get back on track? Because I mean, they're 15th in the AP poll, and Indiana's 13. I mean, Alabama's sliding. They really can't afford too many more losses, otherwise they're not going to be able to even make the expanded playoff at this rate.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, well, I don't really know what's going on. I mean, this was probably expected because Nick Saban's gone. I mean, I just thought that Kalen DeBoer did a good job in Washington last year. Like he had something going for him at least. I mean, I thought that it would translate well here in the SEC, but I guess I mean there are some struggles. Maybe this year might not be the year which I mean fans like maybe within the organization they'll be like they probably won't accept it like we're not even making it to the 12 team playoffs, that's unacceptable, but like the fans will definitely start calling for heads if they don't make it because they always expect success, like there's such a great or the college team. Like for so many years, they've just been dominating the college football. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, Ryan Williams is great. At least one thing's going well for them. So
Yeah,
I don't
true.
know. I mean, maybe a lack of a run game.
Yeah, that's not really
I don't
helping
know. Like
anything.
against Tennessee, they didn't really do much. They didn't even get 100 yards total. So like maybe they
Yeah.
do something there, like dominate on the ground, like get some momentum going, and then start like the passing instead of just like going behind and then having to throw the ball each time.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Something's been off. I mean, after beating Georgia, it looked like they kind of got the
Yeah,
ship righted, and then since then, losing to Vanderbilt an impressive win for Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Kind of embarrassing loss for the Tide, getting outplayed. I mean, from beginning to end, and then they didn't even really rebound that well against South Carolina. They almost lost that
Yeah.
game to kind of an average, the other USC team. I guess we'll get to that later. But then and then losing to Tennessee, not really the greatest 3 game stretch for Bama. And they still got Missouri, they still got LSU, who's looking pretty good at number 8. So they still
Yeah.
got a few tough games in there as well.
Hmm.
They still got the Iron Bowl, and that's always a tough matchup. Even when Auburn's not playing that well. So we'll see if Alabama can get the ship righted. But I guess on to the next game here. We got Miami versus Louisville, one of the premier matchups in the ACC. Yeah,
Hmm.
this one was definitely a shootout. It was a win by number 6 Miami, 52-45 over Louisville, who now falls to 4-3. So I mean, I think they started the season 3-0, and they've been kind of on the wrong track. But another close win by Miami. It seems like they just keep pulling them out after
Yeah.
beating Cal, after beating Virginia Tech,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
in controversial fashion. And this time, but Cam Ward is a machine on offense. I mean, 309, 19 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, and then Damian Martinez, Samuel Brown. I mean, that Canes offense is flying high, and yeah, they look good. I mean, they just keep escaping with wins. Like they could have easily lost to Virginia
Yeah.
Tech. They could have lost to Cal. I mean, they were down 35-10, but they're able to win. I mean, they've had some help from the refs, but they're able to keep the magic going, and they look good in the ACC. There's not really too many other teams that I would really worry about. I mean, Boston College started strong. They kind of fell off a little bit. Louisville's one of the other threats. SMU is looking pretty decent, but I think
Yeah.
Miami probably has that conference on a lockdown, except for Clemson. I'd say is a pretty good team.
Hmm.
Even though they lost to Georgia, they've been really good. So we're probably
Yeah.
heading towards something like that in the ACC championship. And with the 12-team playoff, both teams, have a good chance of getting in. I would say with
Right.
Clemson only having one loss and Miami no losses. And um, yeah, I mean, I don't even think they do play in the regular season. So that's probably what I'm looking at. But Louisville not a bad team at all. But
Yeah.
they've fallen short in some of their toughest games, like Notre Dame losing by 7, SMU losing by 7, and Miami also losing by 7. So they kind of have to get the ship righted.
Mm.
They're probably not looking at another ACC championship game, but they're probably looking for maybe a better bowl game or something like that. Kind of like in the boat that I had Rutgers in, but that's another story now. But yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, those are kind of my takeaways. Miami survives a shootout
Yeah.
once again against Louisville in the ACC. Another tough ACC win for the Canes, but they do continue to keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know my editor, SK Patrick, is is probably not feeling good because his Louisville Cardinals are, I mean,
Yeah,
kind of downhill. But oh, I mean, it was a close game. At least we'll give it that. Like, and I mean, Miami. I don't know what to say. Like Cam Ward is a unit, just like you said. Like probably getting up the draft stocks right now. Like he'll probably go number 1, or I mean, at least a high, like top 5 pick in the draft next year. And like they just keep like escaping close games. Like I don't know what else to say. Like I watched that Cal game late.
me
I was
too.
surprised.
Up that night.
How does it
We were
happen?
texting. It was so exciting though. I was
Yeah,
like, are they gonna
yeah.
win? And then
I
there's
know,
a
right?
targeting. There was like a ineligible man. So clearly they're
Yeah,
helping out, but still, I mean, Miami
yeah,
came all the way back, and just that was a crazy game on game day, and just it ended way after midnight. So just
yeah.
yeah, just pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what it would be for the fans that are like, that supported like one of the 2 teams playing that night, and then also if they supported like the what was it, the Jets and the
Oh
whoever was
geez.
playing in the
In London,
London.
yeah, that was a crazy
Yeah, I
week.
know some people were texting on like on Twitter like salute to those fans who stayed up late and woke up early.
Yeah. Because then the Cowboys game that night went late,
Yeah,
so it was
yeah,
just like a
Cowboys Steelers. Yeah,
ridiculous weekend. But
yeah, it was.
yeah. But anyway, that's that one.
Yeah.
I guess shifting over now to the Big Ten. One of the big surprise standout teams this year is Indiana. I mean, and they just like they're getting better and better. I mean, it started with some non-conference wins, and okay, sure they put up 77 against FIU, but I mean like they dominated UCLA, and I mean they've only gotten better since then. And this statement win was the most impressive. I mean, you could argue they hadn't played tough competition before this. all you want. But I mean, Nebraska was a solid team. I mean, this is only their second loss in the season. They're 5-2. And Indiana just steamrolled them 56-7. I mean, they were carving up the defense. Indiana was looking like Ohio State out there. I mean, they're just their routes and everything. They're playing with confidence, like they belong, and they really do. They're 13th in the nation. And on defense, I mean, Indiana's been swarming too. I mean, holding Nebraska to 7 points. I mean, Dylan Raiola, what, 234 and 3 picks. I mean, one of the great, one of the I think the number one quarterback prospect in that class, and holding Nebraska basically out of the end zone except for one play, and that
Yeah.
and on the ground, Indiana scoring Justice Ellison rushing touchdowns, and Curtis Rourke is really looked really solid as well. I mean, this
Mhm.
IU team's like is for real. I mean, it's just like wow. I mean, Nebraska had not allowed a rushing touchdown all season, and now the IU just kept scoring rushing touchdowns on them, passing touchdowns. I mean, Kirk Cignetti, he really transformed that program.
Yeah.
He brought in the transfers. He did everything. He did everything right for this team. I mean, this IU team was not playing with confidence last year. They were not good. I mean, they really were not. They were one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. They almost lost to Akron, and now it's just a completely different team. I mean, their way their schedule is shaped up, like they could go undefeated except for Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State's the only team that they're probably going to be underdogs. And even then, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they give them a good game now. And, I wouldn't say they're going to pull it out. But other than that, I think they're going to be favorites in every game the rest of the way. And they're really looking at the playoff now. Like, we can get into the playoff 11-1. And I mean, it's just unbelievable in 1 year to have that kind of transformation in Bloomington. And I'm just so impressed with Kirk Cignetti and Indiana this year. They just keep getting better and better and better and better. And it's just like this was something else. This really was something else
Exactly.
from IU.
Yeah, I mean, I know what it's like. I've faced, I mean, as a Georgia Southern fan and JMU also being in the Sun Belt, I've seen what Kurt Cignetti can do. I've seen the transformation that he like took on for the team, like transitioning from the FCS to the FBS, just like my Georgia Southern too.
Right.
So he's had this continued success. Now it's great that it's all working out for him. And I mean, I'm really happy, and I know someone else who's happier than me is one of my interns also, Ethan Burke, because he's an Indiana fan. He's also a Missouri fan, so it sucks that he has that one loss. So,
Yeah.
but like I mean, I mean, him and his dad, like they keep talking to me about how like this was so unexpected. Like they've never seen this amount of success in such a long time. And I mean, the dad's been alive longer, so like he knows what it's like. He's seen like the losing season after season. This amount of like success, this amount of like there's so much inspiration going on for them. The only issue that I feel like they'll have running into is the loss of Curtis Rourke now that he has a thumb injury. Like, can they fare well in this stretch without him? They're saying that he's going to be back like for the Michigan State game, but that's still a long ways down the line. Can they hold things steady like before then?
True, yeah, I didn't even really keep that in mind, but yeah, I mean next week they get Washington. It's the college game day game of the
Mhm.
week, so we'll see if they can keep the ship rolling there before they move on to tougher competition.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, then Michigan State right away. So if they can, they can get by Washington, who's kind of been an up and down team. They lost to Rutgers, they lost to Iowa badly, they beat Michigan, so they've kind of been a little up and down. But going to Indiana, a long trip, so yeah, we'll see if IU can hold ship because, like I said, I mean, they look good. Um, they do got Michigan, who's a lot weaker. They got Michigan State, they got Washington, they get Ohio State, who's looking pretty good as always, and then of course Purdue, who's not really looking at all. So I mean, it should be an interesting sequence of events. But I'm really excited to see if the Hoosiers can indeed make the playoff. They do look really good right now. With 10-2, even 11-1 potentially. We'll see about Ohio State, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what happens there. I guess another one, Georgia versus Texas. I think this was everyone's game of the week. Kind of got the primetime billing on ABC. SEC Saturday night game. So Texas's first loss all season. Even though Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions for Georgia, they got off to such a strong start that they were able to hold on 23-0 in the first half, and then Texas tried to roar back in the second half. wasn't quite enough. Quinn Ewers finished with 211 yards. They did briefly put in Arch Manning, but that
Mhm.
Georgia defense is pretty suffocating like always. And since they lost to Alabama, they bounced back pretty strongly. Although they kind of struggle a little bit with Mississippi State, but they've still been a pretty strong team on offense. They've kind of got it going. Arian Smith has looked good with 134 yards and a touchdown. And I think the other interesting thing from that game was Texas getting a call overturned by their fans like
Yeah,
throwing trash on the field. And that was absolutely kind of like absurd. But
yeah,
like yeah. So I mean, it's crazy. But Vanderbilt now put up a net in like where Texas's section is at, which is I thought was interesting. But yeah, I mean that was kind of the thing. Georgia had come in with one loss to Alabama, a close one. And since then, Alabama's just fallen off the ship, and Georgia steadied their ship. And
Mhm.
Texas was the best team in the country. They hadn't even really struggled at all, even in SEC play, coming off a 34-3 win in the Red River rivalry. But their
Yeah,
first real test here, and they win it. Um, or they lose it, I should say, because
Mhm.
Georgia comes in. But Texas now goes to Vanderbilt, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But yeah, those are my takeaways from Georgia versus Texas. Georgia getting their big win, now they're number two, and Texas getting their first loss, they're number five.
yeah. I mean, this was the game that surprised me honestly because I really thought that Texas was gonna be like the team to beat throughout this year. I mean, they had to they were doing well in the first six games. What happened in this one? Like, I mean, the Georgia defense is what happened. Seven sacks, three recovered
Yeah,
fumbles. You can't lose the ball. I mean,
sure.
that's completely. I mean, then they had ETN dominate the ground for Georgia. So like I don't know, like it's disappointing. I just like I mean it's just my mentality of like I don't like the big teams continuing to win. I mean I know Texas is a big team, but like compared to like UG or Alabama, where like the SEC bias always gets them higher ranked,
Yeah,
even with
yeah,
a loss. So
right.
that's why I'm like any other like non-SEC teams if they do well, no matter how big they are, I'll support them for
Yeah,
as I can.
everyone has a little bit of Alabama stigma. I feel like that kind of went, it
Especially
kind of
because
went
of
away.
last season. Like, I mean, FSU not making it there. I mean,
I
yeah, they
know.
sucked this year, but like an undefeated team not making it to the college football playoffs is just unacceptable. Like,
I know
you
to
must
put
have
in.
an incredible amount of bias to like leave somebody out like that. Oh well.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. Everyone's kind of fatigued with Bama and Georgia. Like, you want to see someone else.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like Oregon, the Big Ten might help a little bit, but you got like teams like Ohio State, Oregon in there in the mix as well. But like yeah, I mean, sticking into the Texas is kind of a new one as well. In the SEC, but going back to the Big Ten for a couple games here. Maryland versus USC. This one was an interesting game because USC's kind of struggled in closing out
yeah,
football games like this season. They lost to Minnesota, they lost to Michigan, they
hmm
lost to Penn State in overtime at home, and then they lose
yeah,
to Maryland. And three of those are one-score games, or all four of those are one-score games, I should say. And
yeah,
that's what's really separated them from becoming like a really solid team because I mean they host in my Rutgers team next week, but that's another story. But Maryland, like kind of an iffy team, they're 4-3.
hmm
They've kind of struggled a little bit in the Big Ten. I mean, after opening well, but they lost to Michigan State, they've lost to Northwestern and Indiana. So this is their first Big Ten win of the season, coming off to a horrible 37-10 loss against a not great Northwestern team, honestly. So I
yeah,
mean, a bit surprising that they were able to come out and beat USC. Miller Moss had a big game, but Billy Edwards, I think, outdid him a little bit. It
yeah,
was a comeback for Maryland.
yeah,
They were down by two touchdowns, and they were
hmm
able to come back in the fourth quarter. Roman Humvee and then Billy Edwards, a quarterback keeper for the Terps, able to get a signature win against what people thought would be one of the Big Ten's better teams. So yeah, big
yeah.
win for Maryland there, big upset.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like USC was leading all the way, and then somehow they collapsed in the second quarter. I mean, they got shut out of the second half, I should say. They got shut out of
Pretty
the third
much,
quarter,
yeah.
7-0, and then in the fourth quarter they had a touchdown, but like the Maryland did more. So, I mean, completely unexpected thing for them. Like they just keep finding ways to lose. Like I mean, the Penn State game last week where they had the missed field goal in overtime, and then here they again had a blocked field goal. How many times are they going to keep losing like to end the game? It's almost reminding me of my Eagles, where like we do well in the first half, or at least last year. Maybe this year they'll do better, hopefully. But like last year, they'd be like first half merchants, and they just could not know how to finish the game. It's like they couldn't step on the gas pedal throughout the entire time, and they let the opponents back in, and then they lose.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it seems like they just yeah, they don't know how to finish games, and I think that's really costing them there. So yeah, moving on to the next one.
I will say though, it was a good decision for Maryland to go for the 2-point conversion before their final touchdown, because that made it so that if they scored one more time, they'd win the game. So good for them. Good for
True.
that to have that in like.
Yeah, I've seen that being discussed on a lot of games. Like, why do they do that when you could just get one? And then I guess they're thinking, well, they could get the second one, so the math still works out for them. And in this case, it worked out really well because they were able to
Yeah,
just take the lead on the second touchdown. So that's an analytical decision that I've seen discussed a lot of times. You might wonder why, but this is
yeah,
an example of it being successful. So that's precisely why. So now, that might clarify that for people who, didn't really understand that in the past. But I guess, to keep the ship rolling here, Rutgers taking on UCLA on the other LA team on the East Coast, and it was a crazy game, but Rutgers didn't win. And
yeah,
they were expected to. They've been on a skid now after starting
yeah.
4-0, defeats, knocking off Virginia Tech, Washington, two
Hmm.
exciting, thrilling games that I was in attendance for. But since then, they've been going the wrong way. I mean, they
Yeah.
fell off like a cliff. They've lost to Nebraska, which is understandable, I guess. Wisconsin absolutely dominated. They're missing a lot of players on defense and even on offense. On the O line, a lot of injuries. Sam Brown's been out, but it's just not a great performance. Kama Nungai's been his usual self with
Yeah.
106 yards, 3 touchdowns. No matter what, he's going to be the guy for Rutgers. But the passing attack, not really the greatest. Although they actually in this game got the ball moving to either guys like KJ Duff, like Dymere Miller, just open passes. But on defense, I mean, Rutgers just letting Ethan Garbers march down the field on them, and he was not a quarterback who was really good. I think he had more interceptions than touchdowns, and just really not looking great. But he had 383 yards, 4 touchdowns, 32 for 38, and then 48 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And UCLA just
Leading
converted the little
rusher of the
plays.
game. Wow.
And yeah, it was like Virginia Tech for Rutgers. They
Yeah.
converted all the little plays, and they were loose. They were slippery. Rutgers was not able to tackle, and they were able to move the ball down the field and take a little play and run it for a lot of extra yardage. I believe there's like over 200 yards after the catch or something crazy, a
Wow.
ridiculous stat like that. So Rutgers tried to catch up every time they went down in the second. They were down 21-10 at halftime, and for them to be able to still almost come back and win the game, I mean, they cut it to 21-19, but UCLA was just absolutely, like they're just yeah, I mean they were just running all over the field, and Rutgers almost came back, but then in the moment where they needed UCLA missed a field goal up 10.
Mhm.
Rutgers could have really threatened them, but
Yeah. The
UCLA picked them
interception.
off, and then they were not able to get the onside kick. But it is what it is. It's just that was the team that Rutgers really should have beaten. They're now 2-5 on the season.
Hmm.
UCLA that is, and Scarlet Knights are now 4-3. So it's just the big game at USC. But
Yeah.
we'll touch on that coming up. But just a really disappointing loss for Rutgers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I feel for you, man. I mean, like watching that Virginia Tech game with you live in person. I mean, it hurts.
yeah.
I'm
We
like
were like on a
an
high, and now
honorary
we're
Rutgers fan, so it hurts. I mean, like I saw it, like the missed field goal. They should have taken advantage to get it.
yeah, yeah.
They get the ball right back after a fumble, scored the touchdown, but then they couldn't get the
I
extra
know.
the
They
onside.
couldn't get the final one, I guess. But yeah, they haven't really been using Jay Patel well. They've been going for all sorts of fakes, and
Yeah.
now his confidence is shaken, and that's not really helping things. And I
Mhm.
don't know, the decision making's been horrible. It's just and injuries have been bad. It's just like all the momentum is completely gone for this team. But we'll see. I mean, USC is not going to be easy. We'll touch on that in the next episode. But I guess the final one on college football, it's I'll shift it over to you for Georgia Southern versus JMU because I know it was another upset for Georgia Southern, and James Madison's looked at like one of the best group of five teams in the country until probably very recently. So Georgia Southern able to get another big win there, and that could maybe potentially shake up the Group of Five playoff race. Although I know Boise State's looking really good. Ashton Genti is like a Heisman candidate. He's been just running for 200 yards every game, and I'd assume Boise would be the team to get that bid. But yeah, just
Yeah.
I guess talk about your Georgia Southern Eagles and how they pulled off that upset against James Madison.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised. Like James Madison has always been a tough matchup for us ever since they got into the Sun Belt. And I'm not saying that like Georgia Southern isn't a good team, but like we usually do struggle with like the bigger matchups. We did have that upset one time at Paulson Stadium against JMU a couple of years back, maybe 2 years ago. And I remember the fans storming the field then because that was even more unexpected because JMU was ranked at that time. And I mean, there were talks this year too, like at 5-1 coming into the matchup that they were gonna get ranked if they won this game, and or I mean at least maybe like bottom 24, 25 or something like that. But I don't know, they completely just got dismantled. I mean, Alonzo Barnett usually plays better than this, and then he was not much of a non-factor in this game. Jalen White did well for us, running the ball 134 yards on 23 carries. JC French, I mean, I'm really impressed with him because we've been needing some like good quarterback play for a while now. We used to always be like a triple option offense where the quarterback didn't really mean anything. We had guys like Jerick McKinnon make it to the NFL. Now he's playing as a running back. He's not a QB anymore because that's just how our style was. So seeing guys like I mean, JC French, Kyle Van Treese, then there was Davis Brin last year. To see like a actual quarterback play from for Georgia Southern is something new for me because like I mean I've only been supported them since 2010. Like, I've only seen that triple option offense. So to see them actually throw the ball, get yards, and get we're finally starting to get like some prominent the contributions by our two like big team transfers. Like Oklahoma's LV Bunkley Shelton came here to Georgia Southern, and then Jake Frum's brother, transferred from Oregon here. So it's good to see them rolling. It's good to see Derwin Burgess still leading this team for us as a wide receiver. 5 receptions, 552 yards or a touchdown. I mean, the defense is why we won this game. We stood them up. I mean, we might have thrown 3 interceptions. We allowed them to get back into the game, certainly, but they just did not want to score. So that's not on me. I mean, we gave them the ball.
Yeah, yeah,
But we did
I
have
agree.
6 sacks, 9 TFLs, passes defense. That's good enough for me. I mean, we even, you know what? Like we even gave up a touchdown to them. So like it would have been a 28-7 game if not for a defensive touchdown that made it 28-14. So I'll just say, like, I mean, James Madison had their chances. Now that Georgia Southern won, we're 3-0. We're first place in the Sun Belt East, and we might have our first chance at a Sun Belt Conference championship in a long time, and for a while since we joined the Sun Belt. So I'm super pumped.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm happy. I mean, yeah, they're 5-2. They're looking very solid. They're on the right track.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I guess with that being said, that's gonna do it for college football. We have about under 9 minutes, so we're gonna try to get through all these NFL games that we wanted to recap. Six of them on the list for our double our little session that we have going on here. So not exactly a 16 game recap like I like to do, but that's okay. I mean, first of all, starting off with Lions versus Vikings. First loss for Minnesota. They were previously undefeated. This
Yeah.
NFC North division looks really good. All four teams above
Hmm.
500, and the Lions look like a real team. They just dominated the Cowboys and they beat a good Vikings team. Like I said, handed them their first loss. But I think, both of these teams are going to be real, real contenders coming in, into January because this was a back and forth game. It was Vikings and Lions, and the Vikings kind of came back, and then the Lions ended it with a field goal to get the win. So I mean, definitely a really good game, and I think these are two teams who are both going to be in the playoffs. They're probably going to be 1 and 2 or a division winner and potential wild card. But yeah. So then on to the next one, also in the NFC North, Packers versus Texans. I think that was a really competitive game between two contenders as well. Um, Green Bay, another team in the NFC North that's, looking to make the playoffs, but yeah, they're also 5-2. So I mean, coming off the tight win against the Houston Texans, who are also 5-2. I mean, CJ Stroud's kind of a little bit limited, I guess, with 86, just 86 yards. I'm not sure if he like got injured or something, but
Mhm.
Jordan Love had a big game. But he threw two interceptions. Yeah, I mean, some field goals by Fairbarn. The Texans looked like they had the lead, but the Green Bay Packers came all the way back. Kind of a defensive battle. They were able to take the lead 21-19, and
Mhm.
then the teams exchanged field goals. Brendan McManus hitting the game winner. So yeah, I mean, like I said, really competitive NFC North. These are two teams that also probably are gonna either be in the playoffs or just looking in. So I think those are the two games of the early slate that proved to be really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm surprised that the Packers won this game because I mean, Houston's been dominating. They've been rolling for so long. That Nico Collins injury is really affecting them. I mean, their passing game's almost like non-existent now. I mean, they have Stephon Diggs. They have so much talent there.
yeah,
They're not even using their tight end Dalton Schultz as much, even though he was the leader in that game with one reception, 28 yards. Imagine that. Like such a tall, talented offense,
right.
and only a 28-yard reception by one person receiver for that game. Like, oh my God. I mean, good news for the Packers defense at least. They held them down. I mean, now this shows that they're ready to take on any matchup. Like they have Jordan Love back. They fared well with Malik Willis when he was injured too. So I mean, things are rolling for them. They have so many options on offense that like some weeks you'll see Christian Watson do well. Some weeks it's Romeo Dobbs, even though there was that one game that he missed due to suspension or something like that. And then Dontavian Wicks is there. They have Tucker Kraft. I mean, there's a lot of things going for them, and I'm not even mentioning Josh Jacobs. Like I
Yeah,
thought they would be in trouble for losing Aaron Jones. Like, but that's just what their tradition is. They have good running backs and they let them go. But then they made a big move this time by getting an like a premier rusher, like one of the best available in free agency, like Saquon Barkley, Jacobs, Derrick Henry. They all move teams. So
right.
like for them to get into the game and for Josh Jacobs to just keep rolling, I mean things are working out for them. Good for the Packers. It's going to be a tough competitive NFC North. I mean, speaking of the North, I mean, Jake Bates, like that
Yeah,
guy, like he's become the new Cavante Turpin and Brandon Aubrey, like coming from a lower pro football league, but
right.
then making it here, making it to the NFL. It's good for him. I mean, it sucks for Minnesota. I'm glad that Sam Darnold's at least back. I mean, it's great to see all these like QB comebacks. I mean, all of them were just kind of like struggling for so long in their season, and then now they're so long in their career, and then now they're all getting back together and potentially setting themselves up for a big payday in free agency once they're available again.
Yeah, yeah, totally get it. About the Packers and everything. Guess just want to blitz through the rest of this so we can talk about Giants Eagles a little bit. Chiefs Niners Super Bowl rematch. The Chiefs just, I mean, Mahomes didn't even play good, and they have so many guys out, and they still find a way to win. I mean, even with Kareem Hunt and McCall Hardman, now they get DeAndre Hopkins loading up for in
Hmm.
the receiver room. They desperately needed a receiver. So
Yeah.
happy to see that. Yeah. So I mean, I think they'll be all right at receiver. I think Hollywood Brown might be okay for the playoffs, which is good too. The Niners have been struggling. They're 3-4. I don't think anyone expected that, but they've had a lot of injuries, like from McCaffrey to
Yeah.
so many other guys on both sides of the football. And
Mhm.
Brock Purdy threw three picks. That didn't help either. Um,
Three picks.
Jet, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, three picks and it's not. Jets Steelers, another team that has a lot of talent. They got Devontae Adams. It didn't matter. Pittsburgh's looked absolutely really good this season, even with Russell Wilson and at quarterback and Aaron Rodgers, another two picks. And the Jets just really don't look like they're gonna live up to their talent, which is kind of unfortunate, I guess, but is what it is over there. I feel like it's worse than being a Giants fan because at least we don't have the talent. But anyway, the Cardinals taking on the Chargers. That was the a game where the Cardinals won that one. Ugly game, but Kyler Murray somehow pulled it out, even though they had a lot less passing yards. But James Conner had a big game on the ground and a lot of field goals. Cardinals winning one in the desert. The Ravens knocked off the Buccaneers in the other Monday night game. Lamar Jackson with 5 touchdowns. He's just remarkable.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Giants versus the Eagles. maybe about 2.5 minutes. So yeah, I mean this was a domination by Philadelphia. Even though Jalen Hurts, kind of had a quieter game, 10 for 14 at 114. The AJ Brown pass was nice.
Mhm.
They have Brown Smith and Lane Johnson back. I don't know what we're doing. The Giants, Daniel Jones just had not a great game at all. Malik Neighbors had 41 yards, but the whole rushing yards, the whole offense was quiet for New York. The receiving game, rushing game, the passing game, everything. On the other side of the ball, I mean, the Eagles were just dominating on defense, and then on offense, it was a Saquon Barkley show. I mean,
Yeah.
he went for 180 something yards,
176 yards. Oh my God.
176 yards. I mean, he really wanted to. I know he doesn't really take it personally, but like he's definitely taking it personally. Like he like torched the Giants. I haven't seen, but he's broke out runs like that earlier in the season. It's not the
Yes.
first time, but oh
Yep.
my God, like he just like he made like the Giants fans like regret like booing him, like because he was like just torched them, or maybe they wanted he made them want. He made them want to boo more because like he absolutely just dominated his return to New York, and Giants fans are just wondering why they paid Daniel Jones and not Saquon Barkley, but that's another story. It's just embarrassing for New York, and
I do have a question for
yeah.
you as a Giants fan. Like, what happened with Devin Singletary in that game? I mean, was it just that they didn't want to like pressure him too much coming back from an injury? Like, he's their lead back, so why was Tyrone Tracy getting more
I
carries?
I don't know. I mean, I think probably the injury, and Tracy's actually been pretty good when he's been out. So I guess it kind of just went by committee, but just nothing worked. It's just disappointing. And I guess I want to end with this. Daniel Jones has played much better on the road than at home. Like they won against Cleveland, they won against Seattle, and they've been flat. I think the booing is also affecting him, and there's just
Yeah.
some sort of stigma there. So, but with that being said, that's going to do it for the review section. We got the previews and the MLB section coming up in the next episode. So don't go anywhere, but this has been part one of the Sports Vibe special here with Rupayan, and we'll see you on the flip side.